to the sound of things can only get better, and yay, Blair gets in, and then school fees, tuition fees were introduced, and I kept thinking, well, there'll be a grand plan for this, you know, Tony won't betray us, you know, we'll stick with it, and I stuck with it until 2003. You know, when I was 17, I had a Labour Party card, and in 2003, when he ignored more than 2 million people who marched to try and stop the war in Iraq, that to me was it. I couldn't continue, and I tore up my card. And I remember discussing it with Tony Benn, who is a great traditional socialist, and he said, there's nowhere else for you to go. And I said, but I cannot remain in this party. It's not the party I joined. It doesn't represent the working classes, it doesn't represent the trade unions. He's like bloody Thatcher. He's, you know, wearing her shoes, but he's not as you know, it was just such a terrible time. And then George introduced respect, and even the name, you know, it's something that respecting the voters, respecting people, respecting what they want, and bringing back, reviving sort of old Labour. And so that's very much where I came from. I mean, under Labour, the poorer have got poorer and the rich have got richer. You know, it was an extension of the Thatcher years. And the last MP here was more interested in Franco-German relations, more infatuated by Europe than Yorkshire, and I don't think he represented the people very well, and he certainly, you know, when you look at this, I was so stupid. I'm sure you've all read the article, and it was clear, you know, he had his hand in the till, and but that's the culture in Westminster, isn't it? They've all got their snouts in the trough, and you know, they should be on charges. They should be put through the courts, because can you imagine if somebody is caught fiddling their dole money or whatever? They're banged up straight away, put before the courts, and but that is the culture in Westminster. So what I've said to make a point is that I will not be claiming any personal expenses if I am elected to represent the people of Rotherham. And when I say personal expenses, I'm talking second homes and food, and one MP claimed for a sink plug, 27 pence in expenses Jackie Smith put down for a sink plug. So, you know, I'm making a stand on it, I'm making a point on this, because I think that the people of Rotherham deserve much better, and I'm hoping that people will look upon my arrival as a potential renaissance, a revival for Rotherham. The Respect Party, for those of you who don't know, is all about giving respect back to the community, and we will put people before politics, and that's something again that Labour hasn't done. They think they can just put a monkey up in Rotherham, stick a Labour badge on it, and you'll vote Labour, because that's the way it's always been. And to push this point forward, they've taken away the favourite candidate, Maroof, and cast him aside. He wasn't even shortlisted. This is the contempt with which they treated somebody who has been so loyal to Labour. And they brought in these two women. Well, for those of you who don't know what happened last night, scores of Labour supporters stormed out of the meeting, refused to get involved in the voting process because as far as they were concerned they could either vote for the frying pan or the fire, and they just wouldn't take part in it. So the net result was 29 people were left inside that room. 11 voted for the RAF wing commander, formerly RAF wing commander. 11 voted for her. 13 voted for the other woman, whose name is Champion. She's been a committed trade unionist for all of 2 weeks, and she joined the Labour Party 2 years ago. So she got a 2 majority. 5 people just tore up their nomination forms and didn't take part in the vote when it came down to it. So that should tell Labour in London, you know, they're not wanted. We want to pick our own candidate. But you know what? In London, the Savile Row socialists couldn't give a stuff what happens up north. It's like a divided country. It's us and them, and this is something that I'm used to seeing, you know, coming from County Durham, where the pits were closed, the steelworks were closed, communities were devastated. So basically there's an awful lot of disenfranchised Labour supporters out there. I would say to them, I know what it's like. Come and join us, come and support us, see if you like us, but use your vote. Whatever you do, please use your vote and use it for respect. I mean, this woman that they've brought in, she's a career politician. She's going to be like MacShane, another one who wants a portfolio, a ministerial portfolio. It's quite clear what she has. I'm ambitious as well, but I'm ambitious for you. I'm ambitious for Rotherham. I want to represent the people of Rotherham and put Rotherham back on the map for all the right reasons, not for all the negative reasons. But I don't have any ambitions beyond representing you in Parliament. That's it. I want to be your voice and do as much as I can great things for Rotherham. And I've spent some time already listening to what people have had to say, and I have to say, you have been betrayed. You've been horribly betrayed by Labour. And again, you know, I go back to the thieving MP that you had before. Now then, for more than 3 years, there's been a big question mark over him and his expenses. Yet despite that, 10 Labour supporters still signed his nomination form in the last general election, and Labour still allowed him to stand, even though there was this huge question mark over him, because basically they don't care what happens up here. I mean, you had the ADL marching here just a couple of weeks ago, and in fact you've had 2 sets of right-wing fascists marching in Rotherham. They're not allowed to march in London. The Walthamstow march was shut down. Theresa May wouldn't have the ADL march in London. But you know what? Rotherham's in the north, so who cares? They think in Westminster that the whole of the UK operates within Greater London. They couldn't give a stuff what happens north of the Watford Gap. Well, this is your chance to show them, actually, we do care. We do care who we send to London. And we will show you that we've got a voice. Because if you do a Bradford, that will really send shockwaves through the main political parties, who will stop taking voters for granted. I don't want Bradford to be a one-off. The media couldn't handle Bradford. They were absolutely outraged. But you see, the media village in Westminster are the same as the main people in the House of Commons. They've got no idea what it's like to be working class. They've got no idea what it's like to struggle by each week. They've got no idea what it's like to be thrown on the scrap heap. And it's going to get a lot worse. You know, I've talked about the Blair years of slash and burn. And then it did get worse. You know, we've got the condemns in now. But what I won't do is I won't make false promises or promises that I can't achieve. And I will do my best for you. I will do my utmost for you. And if you want me to be your voice, I will be that voice in London for you. The culture of greed that there has been in Rotherham, because don't forget the Labour Council, their expenses are 80% higher than the neighbouring council. 80% higher. But this greed culture goes hand in hand with a culture of secrecy and cover-ups. And this is something else that I want to bring an end to, because secrecy is so corrosive, so toxic. We need to push for more transparency. You have a right to know how much your councillors are claiming, what they're claiming for. You have a right to know how they're spending your money and what they're spending it on and who's benefiting from it and who isn't. And there's a whole business of secrecy that goes way beyond the shenanigans of Denis MacShane. I mean, at the moment, something that's concentrating the minds of people here are the welfare cuts. And there was a Labour funded group, Atos, who decides whether you're, if you're claiming disabled benefit, whether or not you're fit to go to work. I was reading a story in the Rotherham Advertiser about a woman who has had cancer. She's been staring death in the face for 2 years. She's been looking at the abyss. She's been fighting terminal cancer, and she's almost winning that battle, and she's having regular chemotherapy. And this group, Atos, has turned around and said, you're fit enough to work, and if you don't go to work, you'll lose your benefits. What way is that to treat somebody who's been through so much illness and is still trying to recover? And then we've got housing benefits. 25-year-olds from April will no longer get housing benefits. Now imagine if you're 16 years old, you've left home, you've got a low-paid job, but you're just about managing, and your housing benefit is keeping your head above water, and maybe you're 22, 23 now, you've worked all your working life, and in April you're going to lose your housing benefits, which means that you can no longer keep a roof over your head, which means you can no longer work, which means you're going to be thrown on the scrap heap, which means that you might have to go home, but your parents might say, there's no room for you now. You can't come here, there's no money on the table. What are those 22, 23, 24, 25-year-olds going to do? How are they going to survive with these cuts? And this is a very real threat. I mean, one of the sisters before was talking to me about her concerns about rising crime. You know, are these kids going to be forced into a life of crime just to try and keep the head above water? This is the reality of living up north. Theresa May and them, they have no idea of what it is to be poor of what it is to struggle every day. And for some families, since the pits closed, since the steelworks closed, poverty has been a neighbour for more, than 20, 25 years. So what I want to say to those people is, please, don't think you've been abandoned. Put your faith in respect. We do believe in equality, honesty and justice. And we have a track record as well of supporting people. And again, if you elect me, it will send shockwaves right the way down to Westminster, and they will stop taking the working classes for granted. They will start looking beyond north of the Watford gap, and they won't throw people in who are career politicians who have no feel for the suffering or the hardships of the people in Rotherham. Again, with the secrecy, when you mention Rotherham, people go, oh yeah, that's the place where Asian gangs are grooming children for sex. For 10 years, the council sat on this, the Labour Council sat on this, the police sat on it, the social workers sat on it. They did very little or virtually nothing. A whistleblower sent 200 documents to the Times, who blew the story open, and one of the sisters said tonight, we are getting so much aggravation from the rest of the community who seem to think we knew all about it just because we're Asian, and we didn't. We knew nothing. We were as shocked as anyone else. But the net effect of that has been to give oxygen to all the hate voices in the far right, which has created the marches, and then you've got this barking mad woman from the BNP, the Holocaust denier. Go on YouTube, you can't believe it. How she hasn't been locked up for inciting hate, I really don't know. But the corrosiveness of this secrecy has spawned this. And then there's a councillor from Rotherham, who's now a Labour councillor, who's standing for the Police Crime Commission elections, and he's saying, I am going to make this my priority. I am going to put this at the top of my agenda. This child grooming, it's outrageous. It will become a priority if I am elected police commissioner. And it's like, whoa. Weren't you on the Child Protection Committee? Weren't you in the Cabinet? Didn't you sit on this gross, vile secret for so many years? And suddenly he's discovered it? This is the hypocrisy of Labour. This guy's got more faces than the town hall clock.
Yeah.
So it's no use sweeping things under the carpet. If there are issues, we have to confront them, and we have to ask how and why, and did it happen? Can we stop it? Can we prevent it again? Can we get more transparency in the town hall? And then we look at beyond the town hall to the hospital. 750 jobs are going to go. At the hospital, 750 jobs, because they've been spending more than they can afford. And when you look at what they've been spending the money on, it's unbelievable. You've got this guy who's on 250 grand a year, 250 grand a year, sitting at the head of the hospital trust, and he spent 4 or 5 million on an electronic patient registry machine, which still isn't working. He then decided to spend another 450 grand on consultants to say, are we spending our money wisely? And then they said, no, you're not. You cannot sustain this level of expenditure, and you're going to have to make cuts. The first thing I would do is cut him, is just get rid of him. 250 grand a year, and the guy can't add 2 and 2 together. He doesn't, you know, any woman in Bradford who has to struggle every week with the shopping bills and our budgets would be able to look at the hospital budgets and see. You can't afford to spend several million having a fancy new front for the hospital. What are you doing bringing consultants in? Paying them 450 grand to tell you you're spending too much money. Do you really need a new electronic patient record system? Is that going to help somebody who's lying ill in the hospital bed? And this man is saying, well, you know, 750 jobs will have to go, but it'll go through natural wastage. What does he mean, natural wastage? These are people's lives. 100 are going to be naturally wasted before Christmas. 100 jobs just gone like that. It's like saying collateral damage. Where do they come out with these words? And on the subject of collateral damage, Respect has always been the anti-war party. Never wanted a war in Iraq, certainly didn't want the war in Afghanistan, and from day one of the Afghan war, we have said that the troops should be brought back. Well, lots of people are jumping on the bandwagon now, but we still say the same thing. Bring those troops back before Christmas, and not in body bags and boxes, which is what is happening at the moment. George was kicked out of the Labour Party because he described the soldiers as lions led by donkeys. And he was right. And what sort of military strategists are they anyway when David Cameron says, oh, we're going to be out of Afghanistan by 2014? Well, the Taliban must be laughing their heads off, you know, well, we may as well take a break and come back in 2014. You don't tell people when you're going to quit or when you're going to retreat or when you... What is the point in keeping lads and lasses there fighting for a war they can't win, a war they can't justify? When you ask people, what is the war about? Nobody knows now. Tony Blair and George Bush, they said this war is about liberating the Afghan women. I have been to Afghanistan many times. I don't go embedded. I put my burqa on again, but this time I go with my passport. And I speak to ordinary Afghan women. They've been horribly betrayed as well. They've been shafted. It's terrible. And so, you know, let's, again, keep pushing to end this pointless slaughter that is happening. There's no justification of it at all. Now I've lost my place. But anyway, that's just a flavour of some of the things that I was talking about. Now, I don't know how many of you will remember, some of you probably weren't born then, but something else that I really want to go at is the situation of Orgreaves. Now, Orgreaves was synonymous in the 80s with the legendary Battle of the Yorkshire miners who fought to save their jobs, and Thatcher, again in a slash and burn mode, did her best to destroy the mining industry. But Orgreaves was a situation where scores and scores of miners were beaten up by the police, they were carted off, they were put through the courts, they were humiliated, they were demonised. It now looks as though the evidence is beginning to stack up. The police lied, the politicians lied, the media, the BBC in particular, were part of the lie. They demonised and used propaganda against the miners. Now then, the mines have all but gone. There's 3 mines left in Yorkshire. Maltby mine will go soon. 500 jobs again will be lost. But those miners are still out there somewhere, either unemployed or retired or maybe in other jobs. And the memories for them are still painful, and the memories for them are still raw. And what I think that Respect should try and do is get justice for those miners and hold and demand that we hold a Hillsborough-style inquiry to get justice for the Orgreave miners. It's still something that's very raw and very painful, and you know, the heroics of those men who were trying to save their industry will long be talked about for years and years to come. But those men and their families and their supporters need justice, and this is something else that I'll be campaigning for transparency, to find out who lied, who was involved in the cover-ups. And finally, I don't know who saw the police outside. For once they weren't coming to see what was going on inside. They were concerned because some youths had walked past and were chanting EDL as soon as they saw a group of hijabi women. The EDL and the like are costing a fortune. The last two marches have cost the police nearly £700,000. They've cost local traders nearly £300,000. Anybody who's involved in business here, the town was just being dead when those marches took place. So we've got to stop entertaining the ADL. We can't afford to have a load of thugs coming into Rotherham, spouting hate in the streets and getting away with it. It's, as I say, it's outrageous. So that's something else that we'll be campaigning about and saying, why is it that they're kicked out of London, but it's all right for them to come up north? Why is that? Why is there this, you know, Miliband talks about his one nation, Cameron talks about his big society. Well, we know it's a two nation, it's a divide, it's an us and them. And we need to stand up more and be counted. And again, I go back to the fact that if you elect me as a member of the Respect Party to London, it will send seismic shocks down in the halls of Westminster, and all those policymakers are going to have to sit down and think, oh, those northerners, what are we going to do with them? We can't grind them down anymore. We can't treat them like dirt anymore. We're going to have to listen to them. Otherwise, you know, if Galloway's in and Ridley's in, who the hell is going to come in next? The other net effect of the Bradford bounce, or the Arab Spring in Bradford, has been the political landscape is changing there as well. And there are people in Bradford now who are Respect councillors, who are representing their community. And I was about to say, who's left the flaming phone on, and it's me. So I do apologise for that. So, you know, I want you to think beyond electing me as your representative in London. I want you to think about how each and every one of you can do something to change the political landscape in Rotherham. And this is another reason I think that Labour moved as quickly as it did to try and stop us from holding our very first rally in the town centre on Saturday. Not because of me, but because you lot might get ideas above your station. You lot might start to think, you know what, that councillor is SH1T. I can do a better job than him or her. And why don't I? And why don't you? Seriously, why don't you? about it. Think about what they do, what they represent. Are you happy with their performance? Can you trust them? I think not. But I want you to think about that. Finally, I'm sure that I haven't covered everything. I'm sure you've all got your own issues. I'm not precious. If I've got it wrong, say, Yvonne, you're talking a load of rubbish. Or why don't you look at this? Or why don't you focus on that? I'm here to learn. I'm here to listen to what you have to say. Because there's no way I'm going anywhere without you. I can't get to London without you. I can't get into Westminster without you. So I have to listen to you. And I need to listen to you, and I need to learn from you. I've only been in Rotherham a few days, but I already feel part of the family. And apart from the Geordie accent, which will have to go, you know, I really do feel as though I'm one of you, and I do want to represent you. So if you've got any questions or observations or anything to say, please, you know, be full, be frank, and because we don't have time for niceties, we've only got 2.5 weeks in which to turn the Rotherham revival into a reality, and it'll only be done with your help. I'll need about 16,000 votes to have any chance, and I am in it to win it. There are no prizes for coming second. I don't want to come second. I really do want to represent you, and you know, as again, it's down to you. So I'll throw open the floor now, because I think I've said enough.
I'd like to say something, Yvonne, if I may. My name's Patrick. I'm a member of the community from Don Valley. I am still a member of the Labour Party. I did resign over the Iraq War. Their position on Palestine is absolutely disgraceful. Their position towards the working class is absolutely abysmal. And their position towards the benefit cuts and ATOS is more criminal than anything. The Labour Party have got a campaign office on Howard Street, just up the road. That's at door number 35. That's staffed full time, and I would imagine that they'll be running their campaign quite vigorously. And the other thing I'd like to say is I've spent most of my working life in the town centre of Rotherham. I've got people who work in the public sector in Rotherham, such as healthcare, such as Rotherham Hospital and other areas, and I can certainly resonate with what you're saying about All Green, what you're saying about Hillsborough, and also what you're saying about the NHS in Rotherham. There are unfortunately lots of issues that you could probably list on and on and on and on, as I'm sure everybody else can tell you. Thank you.
I'll ask a question. What would you do in terms of community cohesion in Rotherham? There seems to be a lot that's gone on.
You know, we had an idea, and actually I'll throw it open about what you think about this. As I say, there was one woman here before who was really upset over the child grooming story, because she said they, as in the non-Asian community in Rotherham, think that we knew something was going on and that we knew that it wasn't true. And I said, I don't know if we can arrange it, but we should try, and that is maybe have a meeting somewhere where we can pull all the communities together and talk about it. and I think by talking about it and exchanging views, a lot of misunderstandings on both sides will go away. I remember going to Belfast just after an IRA bombing, and I went to Queen's University, and there was a terrible atmosphere in the staff room. And people were talking about the weather, they were talking about everything and anything apart from this IRA bombing. and I just couldn't understand it, because I thought that the staff room would have been full of it, like, what did you think about this, and did they have a point, did they do this? Nobody was talking about it, and I asked a friend afterwards, you know, why, and oh, we just never do, we just don't discuss it, because, you know, some of us are Catholics, some of us are Protestants, and so, you know, and I just thought, my God, you know, these people are the cream of academia in Northern Ireland, and if they can't sit and talk about a bombing that's happened in their community, then who can? So I think